I'm James with Performance SXS Bushings. We're going to talk to you a little bit about this KRX drive shaft bearing that we make. Point out some issues with the stock one. Show you a little bit about ours where we've corrected some of the issues so you get a longer service life out of this. First we'll talk about the stock one. This is the stock bearing in the stub shaft. It's an open bearing that's inside there, but it does have a seal on each side. We removed that one there. What's happening is this seal is failing, and it's letting water and mud come around this dust shield, I guess you would call it, get in there and contaminate the bearing, which it has some pretty good amount of grease in it, but it doesn't take much water and mud to really contaminate that and cause the bearing to go out. It's a high quality Japanese bearing, but it's a little bit small. We use a Timken bearing on ours. It's way larger than the stock one in diameters and in width. So you get a larger bearing that's a whole lot more rigid and a lot better service life out of it. So what we did with ours, we machined a new housing. It's basically the same as stock. It's beefed up a little bit in a few places. But we done away with this exterior seal on each side, and we only use the bearing with the seals in it. Okay, you might ask why would you want to invest in this aftermarket option over just putting another OEM one in it. Depending on where you ride at and the conditions you ride in, especially here in the southeast, we have a lot of mud and a lot of water, and once this fails on you, they will usually chew everything up before you realize it's failed. Just say you bought new seals and a new bearing and put a new one in. This is a brand new shaft right here. By the time you realize this fails, your shaft is usually pitted and chewed up a little bit, and you'll never for sure get a OEM one with the seal to seal on this shaft again. So I mean, even though it doesn't seal the greatest, it for sure will not seal at all for very long. The pitting on the shaft will just chew the seals up. And you can buy another shaft. They're not too awful expensive, but I mean, if it's not, you know, too bad damaged, I mean, you can still reuse the shaft if you use our bearing assembly. The way ours works, what we've done is we've done away with the exterior seals, and we've just got a high quality sealed bearing in it. So the way ours works, you'll use the supplied green shaft retaining compound. You'll clean your shaft up good. Put some of the shaft retaining compound on the shaft. And okay, the way ours works is you get your new bearing. It comes with some shaft retaining compound. You'll clean the shaft up good, Scotch-Brite it, take some brake cleaner and clean it. And you'll put some of this retaining compound on the shaft where the bearing's going to sit. And what that'll do, you'll slide it all the way up, and that'll lock that bearing onto that shaft where it's not going to move. Now, the way ours works is you've still got the dust seal that's over everything. This will be mounted in your machine like that. On the bottom side, we've cut reliefs where there's another cap on this side. So any mud, water, moisture that gets in there, it'll be mounted like that. It can drain out, so it's not just corroding and getting into the internals of the bearing and causing premature failure. So that will help it drain out, and you'll get longer service life out of that. On this shaft here, when you take this out, there's a coupler that's on your transmission here. Sometimes these splines will be seized up into it, and a lot of people will think that maybe you have to remove that coupler. You don't. Just take you some penetrating lube, spray in there, work this shaft. Sometimes you can put a pair of vice grips on this and take a wide blade screwdriver and pry it on the coupler, and it'll come out. So you don't have to take the coupler off the transmission. Okay, cut. Once you get your bearing onto your stub shaft and using your green retaining compound, I like to let it sit maybe overnight. You don't have to, but it's a good idea to make sure it locks in good to the shaft. Also, one thing to pay attention to is the orientation of the attaching bolts where it attaches to the frame. You can get this rotated 180 degrees out, and it would be backwards going into the machine. But as you see it here, this is the end that goes into your coupler onto your transmission. This is the end that the drive shaft attaches to. So let that set overnight if you can. You don't have to, but it does help. Now we'll go over installing it into the machine. We'll walk over to this machine here. If you have a winch on the front, you'll need to remove it, and then the 4 bolts on the bottom of the differential, you'll need to take those out. You will not have to remove any A-arms, any axles, or anything like that, but you just need to remove the 4 bolts on the bottom of the diff. Then you'll slide it forward as far as you can and then up at an angle, and then that will allow the drive shaft to come off the front differential, so you'll have room to slide the drive shaft off of the stub shaft back here in the back we're fixing to show you. That's all you got to do up here in the front. You'll come back here to the back, and I guess you would call that a pinch bolt. It's not really a pinch bolt because the spline isn't cut, but there's a bolt in the drive shaft that goes onto the stub shaft. You'll remove that, and you may have to spray a little penetrating lube in there because the splines may be corroded and stuck, but then you'll be able to slide your drive shaft forward, and then you'll have access to the stub shaft. There's also another pinch bolt on it. You can remove it to get the U-joint assembly off of your stub shaft. Then you can remove the 2 bolts in the carrier that's holding it to the frame, and then you should be able to move it forward, and then you may rotate it a little bit and wiggle it out of there, and then it'll be out. Putting it back in is the same process. You'll put your stub shaft and your carrier on first, and then you can align your splines on your U-joints and drive shaft and slide them up. On the passenger side floorboard, there's an access panel on the side, and it usually helps to have 2 people. So once you get all this put in, you have a buddy up on your front differential working it in, and then you will need to realign the splines on the front of the drive shaft and slide it back up on the differential. So once you get that done, you'll reinstall your 4 bolts on the bottom of your differential, tighten them up, and then come back here, and your pinch bolts, you'll reinstall them, line them up in the slots, and tighten them up, and you should be ready to go. We thank you for considering our product. We don't think you'll be disappointed with it. It does come with a 1-year warranty, so I mean you should be good to go. Thank you.